Welcome friends to another r/malicious compliance video. As always, if you enjoy this video, please make sure to hit that subscribe button. And our first story of the day is by Moon Silvery. Want me to mess up some girl's life? Heck nah. Old story, but in 2007, I was involved in a traffic accident on the I-95, I-695 ramp in Baltimore. Traffic went from the speed limit, 55 miles per hour, to a dead stop around the curve of the exit in a space of 500 feet, and it had just started raining. I and my Honda Accord managed to stop literal inches from the person in front of my bumper. I had enough time to have a half a sigh of relief before I was rear-ended so hard that the can of tea in my waist-level console cup holder wound up splattered all over the windshield. I get out of the car and the person who hit me is literally crying blood. She's driving a Saturn that is at least a decade old, and the ancient airbag broke her nose and blacked both of her eyes. She's also crying for real because this is her only transportation. I go crap, grab an umbrella out of my now weirdly shaped back seat and hold it over her while she sobs, explains her brakes have been locked up lately and she was literally on her way to the mechanics, and tries to text her boyfriend to pick her up. She's crying so hard that she drops her phone twice. And then a cop shows up. Baltimore cops are jerks, so he writes this girl a ticket about failure to control speed to avoid an accident and reckless endangerment, and half a dozen other BS things to where the ticket would literally cost more than a new car and she might get her license revoked and or jail time. She's hysterical. I talk to her, reassure her it's not her fault, and manage to swap insurance info. Fast forward 2 months, I had mild whiplash, but I'm healed up and mostly good regarding the accident. Have a new car and everything. I get a notice in the mail that I'm requested to be a witness for this poor girl's trial for her ticket. Don't have to show, but it would be nice. Heck, if I'm gonna let that cop roast her. I was asked, so I'm taking a day off work to show up. I turn up in court dressed in my civil servant best. Was working for the state government at the time, so however staid you imagine, multiply it by 3. And even tossed on some makeup to impress the judge. I wait 3 hours for her hearing because heck if I'm gonna accidentally be late. The cop goes first, making up a bunch of BS about how recklessly she was driving to have hit me in an accident he was probably 10 miles away from, witnessing from his response time. Then the judge calls me and I stand up. Cop looks this weird combo of surprised Pikachu.jpg and pissed like he didn't expect me to show. Poor girl was already crying and starts crying more. So I get to the stand, get sworn in, and tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So I say that we were going exactly the speed limit. I know because I checked my speedometer in surprise that there wasn't more traffic. That she was following a proper distance behind me because I'd checked my rear view mirror and she was a ways off. That it had just started raining after a dry week, so the road was greasy as heck, and I knew that because I almost slid into the car in front of me, only saved by my car's auto brake system. That her wheels had locked because I'd heard the screech and seen the skid marks, and that she definitely wasn't at fault because she was on her way to get her car's old butt auto brake system fixed. And I mentioned that the cop didn't show up until like 20 minutes later. I know this sounds like an everyone clapped moment, but the judge did thank me for doing my civic duty and turning up. And I got a quick hug from the poor girl after the judge dismissed her charges. Anyway, Baltimore cops are jerks, and if you can turn up in court to fight a traffic ticket, even someone else's, you should do so. I think it's extremely commendable what OP did. In a situation like this, a lot of people would be more than content to just let things be how it is, let them deal with it, not get involved and maybe in their eyes waste their time. So the fact that OP willingly took the time off, showed up and defended this person, I have a lot of respect for that. If you were in an accident like this and you knew that it wasn't the person's fault, but the cops were giving them a hard time, throwing them under the bus like this, do you think you would do the same thing and show up in court to defend them? Let me know in the comments down below. Our next story is by Toro's Prime. Give me a speeding ticket because you don't want to say you thought I was someone else? Oh yes, I'll go to court about that. So I'm not totally sure if this is malicious compliance or not, but here it is. There's a really huge hill leading out of the development I lived in at the time. The hill has a good quarter-mile long path from the top to the bottom of it. It's technically in a residential zone, so the speed limit, in theory, is 25 miles per hour. However, in this state, if there's no houses within a quarter mile of the road, it's regarded as being 35 miles per hour. The reality is that they won't give you a ticket for speeding, but they will get you for reckless if you're doing 45 or greater. One day I'm heading out, which means going down the hill. I'm always super cautious about speed limits and I ride my brakes on this zone. I'm 99% sure I never broke 24 miles per hour, so I was really surprised when the cop's light starts blaring behind me. I get down to the bottom of the hill and pull off. Cop comes up, asks for ID but not registration, goes back to his car to run my ID, presumably runs it, then comes back and demands my registration. He didn't ask, he demands it. This struck me as odd, but I gave him the registration. He hustles back to his car, but doesn't actually get in so he can't run anything. He comes back and tells me he clocked me doing 26, and the speed limit is 25. He hands me a ticket and tells me I can either pay the fine online or appear in court on the date on the ticket. Doesn't tell me to sign anything, and goes back to his car and leaves. So many things about this screamed that something was wrong with this, so you better believe I actually went to court. So the court date comes up, I have the day off, got my suit cleaned, and I go to court. I check in with the secretary, and there's no record of my ticket. Now I could have walked out and there was like a 99.999% chance that nothing would come of it, but I didn't know that then and I didn't want this coming back. So I was told if I wanted to wait, I could see if they could slip me in at the end of the day. Okay, so be it. So cue sitting in court for the next 9 hours, they managed to slip me in. I hand my copy of the ticket to the officer, who hands it to the judge. He opens it and begins reading aloud, "Mr. OP, you stand accused of exceeding the speeding limit by..." He looks at me, looks back at the ticket, looks back at me, looks at the ticket, looks back at me, and says in the single most commanding voice I've ever heard shy of a Marine drill instructor says, "Get the heck out of this courtroom. If a judge tells you to leave the courtroom, you do it." So I left and never heard another thing about the ticket. Sort of. A month later, there was a report about a drug dealer being arrested not too far from where I lived at the time, and he drove the same make, model, and color of car as I was driving. I don't know it for a fact, but I think the cop pulled me over thinking he just found the dealer, found me instead, and didn't want to say, "Sorry, I thought you were someone else." So he gave me a bogus ticket, expecting me to just try to pay the fine online, be unable to do so, and give up on it. Honestly, if there's a known perpetrator with a certain make, model, and color of car, and they're trying to nab this person, I'm not sure if it's necessarily unreasonable what the cop did in pulling OP over. That said, I'm just wondering why they had to resort to giving any kind of ticket at all, rather than a warning? Or even without a warning altogether and just say, "To be honest, I thought you were driving a little faster than you actually were, just be careful going down this hill." And that would have been the end of it. This next story is by Colorado Legends. Don't want to give me one sick day? Fine, I'll take 5. Little bit of backstory, then the meat and potatoes. This isn't some crazy story like others here, but I think it fits. I work for the US Navy, so our healthcare works a little different in regards to sick days. If we're deemed sick enough, we get placed sick in quarters, i.e. stay home for however long the doc says. About mid-April, my tonsils started acting up. I see an ear, nose, and throat doctor, whose best guess is it's some sort of bacterial infection. They give me a steroid via IV to treat the swelling of my tonsils and put me on antibiotics with pain medication since it's hard for me to eat or drink anything, and send me on my way. I get placed sick in quarters for 10 days, and my boss isn't really happy that I can't work, but there's nothing he can do. I get better and start going back to work. Now to a few weeks ago, the last week of May. Tonsils start acting up again, but this time it gets much worse. It's Wednesday morning, I call my ear, nose, and throat doctor and schedule an appointment for later that day. He checks me out and wants me to come back the following week on Tuesday so they can try to drain fluid from behind my tonsils. He writes me a blank sick in quarters order till Tuesday and says if I need it, use it, but it's not an official order yet. This is important. The next day, Thursday, my tonsils have inflamed so much I'm starting to have a hard time breathing, which isn't fun. Cue the trip to the ER. Another steroid IV along with IV pain meds. I get another round of antibiotics, pain meds, and also now a steroid pill pack. Now, the ER doesn't really want to write me a sick in quarters chit for even one day, but I still feel freaking horrible. I text my boss letting him know what's up, that I'm in the ER and to just ask him for Friday off, but I tell him I'll be good to work Saturday and Sunday. I don't like to mess over my coworkers because we're shorthanded and I like the people I work with, which is why I only want one day to get some rest and real food again. He says no big deal, because remember that blank chit for my ENT? Yeah, I fill that in and send it off to my boss. Whoops, looks like I actually need Friday to Tuesday off now. I take my 5 days of rest and relaxation, then get stabbed with a needle Tuesday afternoon by an ENT. It was trash, 1 out of 10, do not recommend, the end. Well, hopefully OP can get the tonsil situation rectified. OP clarified at the very end of this post that they're going to get their tonsils removed. I imagine that's not a very fun process, so I'm wishing OP all the best on that. And our final story of the day is by a Grey Witch 11. Only do the shaded lines? Okay. I work for a small manufacturing company that makes agriculture implements and large mowers. I've worked here almost a decade, and my primary job is to prepare the assembly line for new production. I get a schedule list every morning and do my job pretty much without oversight for the rest of the day. Occasionally, there's issues with the part supply in the weld department or in the assembly department, and adjustments have to be made to the schedule list. Sometimes I discover these on my own, sometimes someone else lets me know of the issue, in which case I must go to the product manager. He's not my direct manager, I have a supervisor I answer to according to my department, but the nature of my job answers to his manager, the product manager. Most of the time I can find him walking around in the facility or sitting in his office. He seems to think I get all the information I need from him, very little, and I don't need to ask any questions or be privy to information I believe to be important. Some coworkers think it's because I'm a woman, but I can't be sure. On to the story. Several years ago, we had a large expansion to our facility, and the paint department became larger. We started putting the gearboxes for our mowers on a separate assembly line to be painted. Our schedule list went from being a few pages long every day in black and white to being 1 page in color according to the color of the paint the products would be. This new list also had a column titled Gearboxes, and some were marked with an X and some were not. The product manager told me to only load the products in the shaded rows, indicating their gearboxes were ready for assembly. So one day, I'm doing my job like usual and noticed that I was almost out of shaded product. I went to the product manager's office and he was in a meeting. I can't interrupt meetings. Okay, I can't get a new list from anyone else, and he didn't update me on any gearboxes getting painted today. Cue malicious compliance. It's happened before that the assembly lines ran empty because of parts missing, as mentioned before, and I would be in a world of trouble if I prepared for product that didn't have gearboxes ready, so I let the assembly line run empty of product. Looking back, I don't recall why no one else came along to question or stop me, but the assembly line ran empty for an hour. Finally, the product manager came out of his meeting and walked past my desk, looking up. "Why aren't you loading X product?" I say, "Because I don't have any more shaded gearboxes on my schedule." He sighed, turned away from me for several moments before turning back and calmly saying, "Load the X product." Apparently, the gearboxes got painted that morning, and he didn't get me an updated schedule list or even let me know they were complete. It's literally my job to know these things, sir. Please don't leave me in the dark. To top off this story, some of the paperwork I fill out every day indicates how much the company makes per foot that the assembly line runs on the average day. So that hour that I didn't do anything because no one updated me with new information cost them over $20,000. He keeps me updated much better these days. I definitely think it's in the best interest for them to keep OP as updated as possible. It's a little unfortunate that they had to find out the hard way and cost the company $20,000 before they probably realized how important that is, but I guess in some situations people gotta fall on their butt to figure it out, right? I'm just glad that they didn't blow up at OP because literally there was nothing OP could do. It's either put their job on the line and potentially mess up big time by pushing forward something that just has no reason getting pushed forward, or you do what OP did and sit on your hands and wait around until people finally update you with the information you needed all along. But with that being said, that's a wrap on another bunch of stories here today. As always, if you guys have any favorite videos of this bunch, let me know which one in the comments down below and why. And if you enjoyed the stories in general, if you could subscribe to this channel, it'd mean a lot to me. I make these videos daily, and it's by far and away the best way to support my channel. So no matter what you did, whether it was subscribing or liking, leaving a comment, I just appreciate the heck out of you guys. And as always, I'll be back tomorrow with even more stories right here on the Storytime channel.